You're at dinner with your family, and somewhere between the appetizer and the main course, you notice it. You're performing. Your voice is different. Your opinions are softer. You're laughing at things that aren't funny. You're agreeing with things you don't believe. Then Monday morning, you walk into work, and it happens again. Different room, different mask. You're sharper now, more composed, more careful. And then Friday night, with your closest friend, you feel something shift. The walls come down. You say things you'd never say to your family or your boss. And for a moment, that version feels like the real one. But then you wonder, if you're different in every room you walk into, which version of you is actually you? That question has been haunting people for centuries, and one psychologist had a very specific name for what's happening. Before we name it, let's be honest about how deep this goes. It's not just that you adjust your tone at work. Most people are living with 3, 4, sometimes 5 completely different versions of themselves running at the same time. There's the version your parents know, the one who still plays a role that was assigned in childhood, the responsible one, the funny one, the quiet one. Whatever your family needed you to be at age 10, there's a good chance you're still doing it at 35. There's the version your partner sees, maybe more vulnerable, maybe more controlling, maybe more needy than you'd ever show anyone else. There's the work version, competent, measured, professional, maybe even a little cold. And then there's the version that only comes out alone, late at night, when no one's watching. The one who thinks the thoughts you'd never say out loud. And here's what makes this uncomfortable. You're not faking it in any of those rooms. Each version feels real in the moment, but they can't all be the whole truth. Most people deal with this by ignoring it. They pick the version that gets the best results and call that their identity. The rest gets pushed down. But the version you push down doesn't disappear. It just waits. Jung had a word for this, the persona. It comes from the Latin word for mask, the kind actors wore in ancient theater. And Jung chose that word deliberately. The persona is the face you show the world. It's not a lie exactly. It's an adaptation, a curated version of yourself, shaped by what your environment rewards and punishes. You learned early. If being quiet kept the peace, you became quiet. If being funny got you attention, you became funny. If being tough kept you safe, you became tough. And over time, these adaptations hardened into identities. You stopped choosing them consciously. They started choosing you. Here's the part that most people miss. Jung didn't say the persona was bad. You need it. You can't walk into every room with total emotional transparency. That's not authenticity. That's a breakdown of boundaries. The problem isn't that you have a mask. The problem is when you forget you're wearing one. When the persona becomes your identity, when you can't separate what you perform from what you actually feel, something inside starts to suffocate. That restless feeling you get when life looks fine on paper, but something feels hollow. That's often the gap between your persona and your actual self. And it gets worse, because whatever you suppress to maintain the persona doesn't just disappear. Jung called what lives behind the mask the shadow. Everything you decided was too messy, too weak, too angry, too selfish, too much. The persona says, "I'm fine." The shadow knows you're not. The persona says, "I don't need anything from anyone." The shadow is starving for connection, and the wider the gap between the two, the more exhausted you feel. Because maintaining a performance takes energy, and the further the performance drifts from the truth, the more energy it costs. So what does it look like to take the mask off? Not recklessly, not by dumping your unfiltered emotions on everyone around you, but consciously, deliberately. Jung called this part of the process individuation, the lifelong work of becoming who you actually are underneath the adaptations. And it starts with a very simple question. In which room do you feel most like yourself? Not the room where you perform best, not the room where people like you most, the room where the gap between what you feel and what you show is the smallest. For some people, that room is with one specific friend. For others, it's when they're alone, creating something. For some, it's nowhere yet. And that realization, as uncomfortable as it is where the real work begins. The next step is noticing the transitions. Pay attention to the moment you walk into a room and feel yourself shift. Your posture changes, your vocabulary changes, your emotional range narrows or widens. That moment of shifting, that's the persona activating. And once you can see it, you have a choice you didn't have before. You can ask, is this adaptation still serving me? Or am I performing out of habit, out of fear, out of a childhood contract that expired 20 years ago? This doesn't mean you need to be the same person everywhere. A certain amount of adaptation is healthy. But there's a difference between choosing how you show up and being unable to stop the performance. The goal isn't to destroy the masks, it's to hold them lightly, to know which one you're wearing and why, and to be able to put it down when it no longer fits. If you want to start exploring this in your own life, here are 3 questions to sit with. Don't rush them. Write your answers if you can. There's something about putting it on paper that makes the truth harder to dodge. Question 1. Which version of yourself are you most afraid people would see? Not your worst behavior, not your darkest thought, the version of you that you actively hide, the one that would make people in your life uncomfortable or confused. What is that version like? What does it want? Question 2. In which relationship do you perform the most? Think about the people in your life. With whom do you feel the widest gap between what you show and what you feel? That gap is your persona working overtime. What would happen if you closed it by even 10%? Question 3. If you couldn't be punished or rejected for it, how would you actually show up tomorrow? At work, at home, with your partner, with your friends? What would you say differently? What would you stop doing? What would you finally start? The answers to these questions won't transform anything overnight, but they'll show you where the mask is tightest. And that's where the work begins. If this resonated, there's something I want you to notice this week. Just watch for the transitions, the moments you walk into a room and feel yourself shift. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it. Just notice. Because awareness is always the first step. You can't take off a mask you don't know you're wearing. Next week, we're going deeper into the part of you that the persona was built to hide, the part you refuse to look at. Jung called it the shadow, and understanding it changes everything. This is the depth work.